Welcome back. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to get down and dirty about sobriety, how to get sober, and how to stay sober.
Staying sober with Papa Joey. We're staying sober with Papa Joey. We're staying sober with Papa Joey. It's all about your sobriety.
I've taken some time to check out different channels on different platforms, which I didn't do prior to starting my own. And I have to admit, some of the stuff really took me by surprise. Now, I've known over the last 30 years that there's these different approaches on how to get and stay sober. I understand all that. But some of it's a little too much. And I'm a pretty direct person. I want to know what I need to do to get something done, and then I want to do it, and that's it. And that's how I approached my sobriety years ago. When I finally said I was done drinking, and I meant it, then I was done. And when I went to AA, I shared in the third day, I believe it was, when I started to question a few things in AA, because at first, when they were talking about the big book in AA, I thought they were talking about the Bible. I was a Catholic back then, kind of switching my way into Christianity. However, then I figured out after 3 or 4 days there that the big book they were referring to was actually a book that a couple of the founders wrote and other people, and that's what other people were following. So right away, a red flag went up. But I said, you know what? I'm just going to hang out. I'm going to listen. I met some nice people. It's only the third or fourth day. I'm going to keep coming. And that's what I did. I took my time in AA, met some great people. And my first day there, met a gentleman by the name of Jack. After the meeting, I wanted to get the hell out. I got there at noontime, and at 1 o'clock, I was out the door. Not that there was anything wrong with the meeting, but it was my first day. 2 days prior, I was drunk off my ass. The day before, I made the decision, that was it. I'm done. Finally, it's over. Then I went to AA. So as I was leaving, Jack came up to me and he said, "Hey, Joey, come here." I said, "What?" He goes, "Don't forget, don't drink, come to a meeting, and the rest is all conversation." I said, okay, and I left. Well, later on that day, I started to think about what Jack said. And I understood what he meant by don't drink. I understood what he meant by, come to a meeting, because that meeting was all about me, the newcomer, and mostly everybody that talked was saying that you should come to a meeting every day if you want to get sober. If you're serious about getting sober, you'll be at a meeting every day. But the third one, the rest is all conversation, I didn't quite understand what he meant, other than maybe when you're in the rooms and you're talking, you're having conversation with people about drinking and stuff. So I kind of thought that's what he meant. Well, it took about 2 or 3 weeks for me to really understand what Jack meant. And what Jack meant was, and the rest is all conversation, meant the rest is all bullshit. And that made sense to me, because I was hearing things in the room of AA. I only went to one place for the meetings at that time. But a lot of the stuff really didn't make sense to me. But it was okay. There's one thing that I did know that made sense, was I wasn't going to drink. And I'd be willing to listen to what other people said. When life was a mess, I made a lot of bad choices when I was drinking, and it was time to stop. I don't want to go back there. So in AA, I started to question everything. I did the 12 steps, and I kept on saying, is it necessary? Why is this necessary? And people said, this is the only way you can get sober and stay sober. You got to do these steps. But then, while I was in those rooms, I listened time and time again to people who had already gone through AA, did all the steps, but they drank again. They picked up. Went back out, had a little bit, more aggravation in their life, and then they returned back to AA. And all of them said the same thing, though. It didn't get any better out there. Some that said it went back out the third or fourth time. So I'm trying to figure shit out in the rooms. What was actually working for people? And it was what I thought from the very beginning. The only thing that works is you don't put a drink in you. Now on this channel, I also say you don't put drugs in you. Now, my favorite saying has always been, I don't drink no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. I don't give myself any reason or excuses to pick up. I also put, I don't drink or use people who are abusing drugs, no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. So I was making it pretty simple for myself, because I heard a lot of people come up with excuses or reasons why they picked up. But in my eyes, they just made a choice. If you're sober for any period of time and you pick up again, it's because you wanted to pick it up. That's it. You got to own up to it, accept responsibility, and then do whatever you're going to do. If you're going to continue drinking, then continue to drink. If you're going to stop and then try to get sober and stay sober, then you got to do that. But you have to be honest with yourself. A lot of people don't talk about responsibility when they're talking about getting sober and staying sober. They want to throw out a bunch of other shit, though. They want to throw out all these steps you have to do. Other programs have different worksheets, whatever, that they go through constantly. And of course, you can't forget about throwing, it's a disease, right? Because now that's a big thing. People are saying, well, I've got a disease now. It's not my fault. There goes the personal responsibility right out the window, right? Once you can say, I have a disease, well, that takes care of a lot, right? You can't be blamed for anything you did in the past because of your drinking or your drugging. Now it's something external, right? It's this disease thing that all of a sudden happened to me. Well, I've never bought the disease concept. I'm not going to get into it that much on this podcast, but there's a lot of people out there, a lot of medical people that don't buy into the disease concept. There's only one thing I will say, though, is anytime the medical community can label anything a disease, they can start making money from it. You don't think I'm serious? Remember when people would get gas acid reflux? What is it now? It's an acid reflux disease. You can make money anytime you label something a disease. Now, I'm not saying that people who abuse alcohol or drugs can't get a disease because of the alcohol or the drugs they put in their system. That can happen. But the idea of drinking is a disease, I never bought it, okay? And nobody can ever convince me. I've had too many discussions with people that went down that road with me, and they've lost every time. Because in my opinion, if I have a choice, then I don't have a disease. Think about it. Do you know somebody that has cancer? Because I've heard it referred to before when people say, I've got alcoholism. It's just like cancer. Well, do you know anybody that has cancer right now or in the past that all they would have to do to stay in remission for the rest of their life was to go to a meeting every single day? I'll wait. Let me know. Actually, you can put it in the comments below. You know anybody that had a disease that all they had to do was go to a meeting every day and they would be fine? Or stop a certain behavior and they would never have to worry about that cancer coming back into their life again? Do you know anybody that's been able to do that? I didn't think so. And going back to AA, back in the early days of AA, and it's in the book, AA referred to drinking as a spiritual disease, meaning it was a sin. That's it. That's where the initial disease concept came from. AA was calling it a spiritual disease. They also called it an allergy, and some parts of the book referred to it as an illness. So even back then, nobody knew exactly what it was, other than a behavioral problem, right? It was habit forming, addictive. So now we got people that are hung up on this "I have a disease" concept, and a lot of people are pushing it. I've listened to some of these channels, and there's quite a few people pushing that. Be careful what you listen to. That's all I'm saying. I'm not telling you to believe it or not. I'm telling you reasons why I don't buy into it. There's one thing that, again, nobody talks about, and this is what I mean by getting down and dirty. Nobody puts the blame on this addiction problem where it belongs. It belongs on the person who's doing the drinking and the drugging. It belonged to me. When I was drinking and I was getting into trouble due to my drinking, then it was my responsibility at that time to take a look at my life, see what was going on, and I knew what was going on, and say, you got to knock it off. It's over. You can't do this. I chose not to. And I continued to drink and do things that I shouldn't have been doing until finally, one day, just like a lot of people, one day you fucking wake up and you go, I can't live like this anymore. I'm fucking done. That's when I took responsibility for my actions. Because when I said, I'm fucking done, I've had enough. I'm not going to drink again. And when I walked into AA on August 31st of 1992, I never had a drink after that because I was fed up with myself. I said, I'm not going to live that way again. I'm not going to go through the shit that I went through ever again. And the only way I knew how not to go through that stuff again was not to put alcohol in me. See, I call it the common denominator theory. There were many times where I got into trouble when I was drinking. Sometimes I'd sit alone and start to think about what's going on? What am I doing? Then I started to think back on all the times I, got in trouble. And then it occurred to me one day, every time I got into trouble, the common denominator was alcohol was involved. Would I have ever gotten a DUI if I didn't have alcohol in me? No. Would I have accidentally hit a police officer with my hand if I wasn't drinking? No. What about some of the other issues I had, relationship issues with women and fights I got into in bars? Would that have happened if there wasn't any alcohol in me? Probably not. Well then, got a problem there. Cut the alcohol out and you might not have that problem. See, it's called personal responsibility. Now, I could look for all kinds of excuses, like people still do. A lot of people that go to meetings all the time still talk about these excuses. But in reality, all I had to do was stop drinking. and then change a few things in my life. Now, I learned some coping skills kind of in AA, meaning, of course, when Jack told me don't drink and come to a meeting, which that's here or there, and the rest is all bullshit, that's where I came up with my saying, I don't drink no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. So there's no excuses for me. And when I tell that to people, they go, it's just not that easy. And I'm saying it can be. Nothing says it has to be difficult unless you make it difficult. If you want to keep going down the path of like peeling an onion, right? You want to find the root of your problem. Everybody wants to find why they drank alcohol or why they're abusing drugs so much. And they keep peeling that onion and it just keeps on going and going. And sometimes, you know what? Nobody gets the answer they're looking for. In the meantime, they're still going down that road every once in a while of putting a drink in them or a drug. And in their defense, in their mind, it's like, hey, I can't get answers to this. I don't know what to do. Well, you have to start by accepting responsibility for your behavior, and then you got to change your behavior. You didn't always drink alcohol. You didn't always do drugs. And there are times that there's a lot of people that got some time in sobriety. If it's 30 days, 90 days, a year, they have proven to themselves that they can do it, but then they chose to pick up again. And the bullshit that people throw out there is, well, it's because of the disease. The disease got a hold of me again. That's just bullshit. I mean, there's many times early on when I was, newly sober, that shit was hitting the fan, and all I could think of was a drink, because I knew that drink would ease the pain I was feeling. But I had a choice. Do I pick up that drink and, forget about some of the sobriety shit that I've been learning and been applying in my life? Or do I go through it? Because it'll always get better, right? I did a podcast called Don't Quit 5 Minutes Before the Miracle, and just tough it out for a little while and not pick up a drink. I mean, that's what you have to do. Instead, we go around to all these support groups. Here comes the down and dirty. Some people aren't going to like it. We go to all these support groups and we want to share our feelings. We want to tell everybody, woe is me, I don't drink. Woe is me, I don't do drugs. Or woe is me, I picked up again. You need to stop. I'm going to do a podcast about a person that was very close to me that died of a drug overdose. Okay? So I'm not heartless about what's going on. People have to accept that they have the responsibility to themselves to do the right thing. If the right thing for you is to go to meetings every day, go to them. If it's going to a different support group, do whatever you have to do. But none of it's going to work unless you understand why you should not put alcohol or drugs in your system. Because I'll tell you something, the best story you'll ever hear at any one of those support groups or recovery groups, whatever you want to call them, the best story you're ever going to hear to keep yourself sober is your own. Because my story keeps me sober. So you've got to get to the point where your story is going to keep you sober no matter what. I knew I had a problem drinking. I didn't want any help because I didn't want to stop drinking. And that's the problem with a lot of people. They know they got a problem with drugs or alcohol. They don't care, because anytime they got into trouble, just like myself, somehow, some way we were able to work around the trouble And we figured, okay, I got past that. Now I can continue drinking if I want. Okay, that's what people do. That's the truth. And like I said, I've seen people in AA. They've done all the steps. They made a ton of meetings. They said all the right things, read all the right books, and for some reason, they picked up again. You know, people who went to NA, they did the same thing. They picked up again. Why? They made a choice. Did they know better? Absolutely. But they still decided, what the hell, I'm gonna try it again. I've said this to people in the past when they've said to me, you're telling me, Joey, you can't have 1 or 2 beers? And I said, you know something? I may be able to. I may be able to have 1 or 2 beers, and then that was it. Maybe. I'm not gonna try, but maybe. But then I know me. The next day, I'm gonna say to myself, I could probably have 2 more. I can have a couple today, so I may have a couple of beers. And then what happens is, I have a 6-pack. I'll go grab a 6-pack of beer. And I'm only gonna drink at the house, but I'm only gonna have 2. But this way, since I got a 6-pack, I don't have to go back to the store, 2 or 3 days, right? That 6-pack will be gone day 1. I know myself, because as soon as the buzz hits, I want to keep that buzz. Then that 6-pack, when it's gone, I've got a choice to make. And what's that choice? Either go to the store and get another 6-pack, or maybe a 12-pack. Or why not go to the bar, right? I got the buzz, now I can go to the bar and have some fun. I'm off to the races again. And who knows what'll happen if I end up drinking in a bar after all these years. Probably the same thing. I'm gonna drink a lot. I'm either gonna have a really good time and, do some crazy shit with people that I don't know who they are, or I'm gonna shoot my mouth off and end up getting into a fight, or possibly going home with a woman that I probably shouldn't be going home with. So I know how that scenario is gonna play out. Do I want to do that again? Do I even want to risk it? Fuck no. So that's where you have to get yourself at. Don't make it difficult. Well, I can't believe that I've already been this long into this podcast, and I'm just going to end it. Like I said, it's a little down and dirty for me compared to the other ones, but there comes time where responsibility has to be brought up. People have to own themselves, and they have to own their sobriety. And like Jack says, you don't drink, go to a meeting. You don't have to go to meetings if you don't want to. Go to them if you do. And the rest is all conversation.
Think about your serenity. Be grateful for your sobriety.